What's up, everyone? My name is Wes. You're listening to the RiGBY podcast. For today's episode, I got to talk to the members of St. Paul punk quartet RiGBY. The band released their debut album, We're Dying, earlier this past May. We were able to chat about the writing and recording process for the album, their experiences playing live, and a whole lot more. Without further ado, here's my interview with Faye, Hannah, Maud, and Kian of RiGBY on the Ear Coffee podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want us to go around and introduce ourselves? Would that be helpful?
You read my mind. That was going to be the first thing I was going to ask.
Wonderful.
Just do names and your role in the band to get things started.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm Maud. I use she, her pronouns. I play bass. I switch off between bass and singing.
I'm Hannah. I use she, her, and I do the same as Maud, bass and vocals. We both do a little rotating, so yeah.
I'm Faye. I use she, her, also they, them. I play guitar.
I'm Kian. I use he, him. I play drums.
Cool. I like starting out interviews in a similar way, no matter who I'm talking to, because I find that pretty much every musician has a deeper, if not closer than usual, relationship with just music in general as a listener, not even as a performer. So I want to ask, what was your relationship with music like growing up, and what were the songs or moments that first made you fall in love with it and really think to yourself, maybe I want to do this myself one day? What was that kind of experience as you were first expanding your horizons, I guess? What was that like?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
Yeah. I can start off. So growing up, I kind of was surrounded by music. It was always playing in the kitchen and in the car. I grew up listening to Replacements, X, Descendants, and then also Dolly Parton, Millie Nelson. So I kind of got everything. And then what really got me into it was seeing Scrunchies perform live and also hearing Babes in Toyland. I think that was what clicked, and I was like, yeah, I want to do this. They're badass.
That's awesome. Yeah, for me, I would say somewhat similarly, my mom is super musical. She plays just about every instrument, so that was always around in the house. My dad describes himself as not having a musical bone in his body, but he loves music, and he would play everything for me. It was, the White Stripes and whatever. The other day I walked in and he was listening to a Metallica song, and then it switched over to Chance the Rapper, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. So that was kind of the environment I grew up with. And then similar to Hannah, I had played instruments when I was little, but never really liked it until I heard, I think also Babes in Toyland. It might have been the exact same band. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, for me, I've been playing guitar since as long as I remember, but it used to be I don't know, kind of classic, acoustic guitar, all that reading sheet music stuff. And I was I didn't really mind it, but it wasn't something I was interested in. But I think it was System of a Down. That was the first band that got me I actually want to do. Yeah, my music taste. I'm not so much into nu metal anymore. My music taste definitely changed, but I still I still that still holds System of a Down still holds a place in my heart for being the first band that I genuinely started liking.
Yeah. I'm the odd one out. I did not grow up in a musical family at all. My family did art. Both my parents were interior designers. So I grew up in an art household, but not a music household. I did on long car rides. I listened to Queen and Meatloaf, and disco with my mom.
Yeah.
And I was kind of into that, but nothing really sparked me musically. The thing that really wanted me to start playing music, let's see, just along the way, scrolling through the internet when I was 13, I found punk music, and the Descendants were really big, and then nothing really hit me until like I always thought like, oh, I will never be able to be in a band because or like a successful band because it wasn't just a reality to me. Um, and then I saw the band Bruised Violet live, and I was like, wow, this is actually like a viable option. And that was just like a huge motivator. And then I was like, okay, now I'm gonna start like being in bands and start playing music.
Yeah, a lot of love for Bruised Violet. A lot of people had a similar experience with that, where they saw like Bruised Violet or Scrunchies and just kind of had their minds blown, and
That's really funny.
Yeah.
And I
rightfully
actually have
so.
to say, I have to go back on mine. I wish my story, why I started like doing my own music, was as cool as what Hannah originally said. Babes in Toyland did inspire me to be in this sort of band, but I started writing songs because from a very young age I loved Taylor Swift. And so it was absolutely Taylor Swift that inspired me to start writing music. I have notebooks from when I was probably like 7 of lyrics that I would write, and obviously I don't know, what was I doing? What experience was I writing from? But I would just like take buzzwords from Taylor Swift songs and write whole songs about, being in angry breakups. And I still have a lot of them. Some of the little bits of lyrics are incorporated into some of our songs. Like I'll take a line from really old music and put it in one of our new songs.
That's so funny. Someone on Twitter like yesterday like found like a 65-page like long diatribe they wrote about like their boyfriend when they were 14 or something. And like that kind of like the same energy. And like they were like reading through it, they're like, should I publish this? Should I make this into a book? And I wish I could remember who it was because it was really great. Just that many pages, like that's longer than like a dissertation. But like
Really funny.
you guys already kind of started touching on this, but did you have any experiences like writing songs and like playing, especially playing in bands pre-RiGBY, or even for like bands that never recorded anything and were just kind of lost to the annals of history and to each other's memories? But what were your first experiences doing that?
Oh,
Like, and if not, yeah,
oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was in 2 bands before RiGBY. One of them was with Maud, and one of them was with Kian. We never even played a show together, so like I don't.
Yeah.
Honestly, I had forgotten about that. I wasn't going to bring it. I had forgotten.
It was funny because back then I was on guitar and vocals, and we had a drummer, and then that just fell through when we started doing RiGBY. That's funny.
Yeah, I think and right before that, Faye and I did something too where we kind of started writing songs, but practices were really spread out. And it never, I don't think we ever had like a name or anything. It wasn't super.
I don't even think we had a practice that had all members of the band.
No.
Practice that everyone.
Yeah, I don't think we did. I think other than that, my only experience was like playing at music programs and stuff where I like learned to play bass or whatever, but I was never like in an actual band pre-RiGBY. Kian, you were in that other band.
What? Really?
Yeah, the one you were in right before we got together that you made the shirts for and that you performed with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. My brain doesn't work. Yeah, I was in another band. We played a couple of shows. Yeah, I think like most of our experiences and how we've kind of been so strong as a band in general is we've kind of learned from our past mistakes. I think most of us have been in just bands that have not really communicated well or worked well together. And I think like that's kind of the difference. Like when we started RiGBY, we kind of set out not having like, I think we've all been in bands that have had like a clear like leader or a couple different leaders. And I think we set out RiGBY and just kind of like made this mutual agreement to just be like, well, no one's the leader. We're all just doing this together. This is our project. This is RiGBY. And I think that's kind of why we set out, and we liked the design, the little guy, the little RiGBY persona, was kind of set off to to be like, that's the face of RiGBY. We're not the face of RiGBY. We're all the cogs in the machine. That's the face of RiGBY. If RiGBY wants a leader, then it's the cartoon. That's not us. And I think that's just kind of the original idea. Like when I was making the logo, I was like, I wanted to do something really, really interesting, and of course, like a circle smiley face. That's really interesting. But
Well, actually, do you remember where that originally came from?
yes.
And it's
do you
still in
wanna
my
tell the
room.
story?
Yeah. So we were trying to come up with a logo because I think we kind of thought a little bit Descendancy, like Milo. We'd
Yeah.
like talked about that because it was a band we all liked, and we're trying to think of some sort of cool logo. And Kian does cool art and graphic design stuff. But he had at one point, there was this period of time when we would do some music practices together pre-RiGBY. We just like jammed or whatever, and Kian would draw little doodles like on post-it notes, and he would just draw them, and a lot of times they were funny. They were kind of caricatures of people we were playing music with or whatever, but he started just like giving them to me, and little did he know I was keeping them, and I actually put them up, and there's a little one still on the wall in my bedroom. I'm not in there right now, but it's this little guy, and he has a big head, and he looks sad, and he's just standing there, and I brought it to Kian, and I was like, I want it to look like this, and so that's we went from there.
Yeah, we went through a couple ideas.
Yeah.
I think one of them was like a raccoon. One of them was like lips. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember. There's somewhere. But yeah, out of all of those, like Maud was just like, I think this is the idea. And I was like, okay, I'll redraw it and make it look at least a little bit more interesting.
For some reason, the little guy reminds me of like how you see people just that have like Ween t-shirts, and it's just like the guy with like the little hair, and he's like, not saying that you guys sound like Ween, but Ween, it just made me think of that. Probably because I've seen a lot of Ween fans lately, so that's on me.
That's our number one characteristic.
Yeah.
The band Ween fan club.
It wasn't Descendants. It wasn't Babes in Toyland. It was Ween, actually.
Ween brought us together.
No, that was definitely the goal when making the logo. Like when I was thinking of it, I just wanted to make something, because going off of that Descendants thing, everybody knows the Descendants from the Milo logo.
Like the
I was
guy,
like,
yeah.
okay,
Which is right behind you, I think.
I want to make something like that. Yeah, it's. And I wanted to make something like that. That I just wanted to like, because everybody has those different logos, and I wanted to make something at least a little bit more interesting than just words. And we also have words, but I wanted the little characters as well.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, you kind of already touched on this a little bit in that like Faye and Maud and Keen were all in bands together before RiGBY, but how did this quartet actually come together and become RiGBY? If I'm not mistaken, it was like early 2019, I think, or so. Yeah, so just tell that story.
2-year birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday!
Yeah,
Yay.
2-year anniversary on April 20th.
Good day, yeah.
Well, so we had all kind of played music together, and you guys totally jump in, but one thing that I say and that I think worked really well for us is that like we didn't like not get along, but we weren't necessarily friends before we started playing. We knew each other as like musicians. And I think the closest, I was kind of closer to Hannah. We were maybe a little bit closer to friends. Like we had talked about doing music stuff together a little bit, but actually the Garage was hosting this like cover band night for, you choose a punk band and come in. And I saw that and I was like, that'd be really cool. I want to do that. But I need like other people to do it with me. And I was like, these three are pretty good musicians. I'll ask them. I know they like Babes in Toyland, so let's all get together. And we had like 3 practices, and on the form you had to like put your original band name, and I was like, well, we're not actually a band. So I think during one of the practices we like just spitballed a bunch of things and wrote down the one we all could agree on. And then after that thing, like people were like, oh, you guys are really good, when are you playing next? And we were like, I guess we're a band. Which, yeah, I think that says a lot.
Yeah,
I thought it was funny. That show, like, we didn't get the memo because the name of it was Pop Punk Sucks.
Uh-huh.
And we took that pretty literally because we did punk, and the other bands were all pop punk, and it was kind of funny.
We came into it being like, we don't like pop punk, so we'll do a classic punk band, and then it was like Green Day, Jimmy Eats World, and some really nice people played at that show,
Yeah.
like bands that we still are in contact with. But it was funny that we were coming into it with a very different perspective.
Yeah. It's like the band was like forced into existence. Like
Yeah,
there was never any plans. Like we should find a gig. We should keep practicing.
Yeah.
That's literally it. Like, you're saying that as a joke, but that's literally what happened.
Seriously,
Yeah, no, I think I wrote like 3 songs, and I was like, I guess we got enough songs. I wrote a bunch of songs that just have one riff to them. That's why we have like so many weird songs that just have one riff.
Yeah.
Everything comes from a good riff. That's the starting point. So the band, it's been, the debut album has been a long time coming. It feels like, because there were the demos that came out in like end of 2019, end of summer 2019, and most of those songs actually ended up on "We're Dying," the album that the band just put out, I believe a week ago from recording, just about. But then it hasn't been until the last couple of months where the band has kind of been jumping back into action, dropping the single and the video, doing the live stream and everything. And obviously there's a whole year there where most people weren't doing anything because there was a plague. But I guess talk a little bit about how the band has kind of grown since even putting out those demos and playing shows initially and getting kind of on your feet together as a quartet and solidifying everything to now, where, especially without really the ability to practice or play shows as much over the last year, if at all, you've arrived at a pretty solid like starting point with a point with the album. So I guess talk about like that growth process from the demos in the early days to where you're at now.
So the demos were actually put together in literally 2 days.
Yeah. Very rushed.
One microphone.
The purpose for those was the Current was doing like a back to school, like high school thing for like an hour where you could submit your music and it would get on the radio. And it was very rushed. Like we had, like I said, 2 days to get this in. We had never recorded. We had these songs pretty set in stone. But I'd say the demos were just kind of just to get something out there. Don't recommend listening to them
At all.
at all.
I actually recommend, please do not listen to them.
This is not drawing attention to them. Like, hey, go buy these.
Yeah.
You can hear all these songs in actual recorded form on the album.
Right.
Yeah. So the album was kind of just what we had wanted to do for a while. Kind of the repolished version of those, and I'd say the songs have changed a lot since then, and the recording quality. So it was a pretty big jump, and it did take a little bit of time from that to the new album. So yeah,
We upgraded from one mic, so
yeah,
2 mics.
Proud of us.
One microphone. I mean, we had the mics Hannah and I were singing into, but then just the one mic taking all the sound from a room. Yeah.
Recording everything into a vocal mic. Like, hey, I got an SM57, guys. Let's do it.
Not ideal. I mean, so that was, we kind of rushed that out. And through that, though, we did actually, after the demos, we kind of took a jump there. But we played some shows after that. And actually, one of the other bands that was on, no, 2 of the other bands that was on the Back to School episode, we ended up reaching out to and playing a show with them. Loki's Folly and Doom Child. I think it's like D and then like a 8 on the side, M. Yeah, and we ended up playing a show with them, and that was super fun. So it was like a good connection there. And we've played a few other shows right before COVID, everything hit, like right before. In February of, was that 2019, 2020?
2020, yeah.
2020, yeah.
We played a show that I think was like an absolute great note to go out or take a break on. We played with Scrunchies and Partition and Hype Man and Kitten Forever, and that was like bands that we all really liked. And so it was like kind of this really awesome show. It was at Moon Palace, and like more people than we ever expected. Like it was weird. We actually got paid, which, you know, we were getting paid before, but it was like, you know, as a band,
You can
we
afford
made
like
maybe 30
half the
bucks.
band to get Taco Bell afterwards.
Right, exactly. No, exactly. So we had that, and then I think, you know, you asked about what practice kind of looked like during COVID. We were lucky to have a space that we could still practice. So we were able to still do that, and all masked, like practicing together, just trying to make stuff work, trying to really get this album to actually happen, get the merch to actually happen. So it was a long process, but we did eventually get there.
Yeah, we really didn't stop. It was like, well, we did stop for a little bit, but we thought about like we didn't want to like take this big break. We took maybe like a month or two off just to wait until what the CDC said and got all like the safety requirements, and then it was just like straight back into it when we knew we could, because we were setting out that summer anyways for recording the album. So we wanted to just prep and just get everything through and done. And of course, it took a lot longer than the summer, which none of us knew would have happened. But we totally like, we just had that mission already, and we wanted to just fulfill it. And I think we're all just super happy it came through.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier how you talked about how part of why RiGBY itself, like as a band, was different from maybe prior bands and has worked so well is that there's no leader, there's like no de facto like main person who everyone else sort of has to defer to, even if it's like an unspoken thing. So I'm curious, with that very unified and collaborative mindset, how did the band and how has the band approached songwriting and writing the songs that, even though the initial versions that you probably played at shows and ended up on the demos, and especially the fully fleshed out versions that are on the album, was it also pretty communal and very much like everyone's on the same page, or was it a little bit more unexpected, a little bit more all over the place? If you want to talk a little bit about that, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I feel like with every song it's different. Usually one of us comes like, I feel like it's usually me or Hannah, but it like that's definitely not a rule or something. But like one of us will come up with like a line or sometimes a vocal part, and then we'll all just from there like with our own stuff.
Yeah, I think it really depends song from song. Like sometimes it's like one of the recent ones we were writing, I had these lyrics I really wanted to do something with, and I came and I was like, Kian, make it sound loud and angry. And he was like, Mon, what are you talking about? That's not how you describe drums. But he got it, and he knew what I meant. And so sometimes it's like that, or sometimes, like Faye said, it's like we start with a riff, and Hannah and I flip through our lyric notebooks and find something that matches the right amount of space for like a verse, and we go from there. But I think that totally comes through in basically every aspect of what we do as a band. I think, like Kian said, it is pretty communal, which I am so grateful for. I think sometimes it's frustrating when we're all sitting in a circle, like writing one caption for an Instagram post for like 15 minutes, deciding, like nitpicking every word, like each of us having really different approaches to it. And at the end, it just says like, listen to our album. And that took us the whole time. But I think at the end of the day, it's nice that we can work on everything together.
I think not a lot of bands are that thoughtful about everything. Like every Instagram post, we are there
Literally.
together writing it and being like, no, that sounds stupid, or no, don't do that. Like we put a lot of thought into it for something that's just mediocre.
Yeah, it takes a lot of effort for sure, but I would not want it any other way, and I'm so glad that we can all bring our individual skills. You know, some things obviously like one person knows more about, and so then we can kind of follow that way, but it's really nice to be able to like kind of bring everything together that way.
It's never like too rigid.
Yeah, and we're all multi-instrumentalists. All of us at least know one other instrument or two. And we can all just like, if someone wants to like if Faye wants to write a drum part, Faye can write a drum part. Like, that's fine. I'll build off of that. Or if I want to write a guitar or a bass part, I can jump into that. Or like in Maud's situation, if she wants to describe the drums to me in the best way that she can, I'll try to run with that the best way I can. Like, we're all just throwing shit at a wall, like, and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, I think that is a great way to describe our writing process.
I mean,
It's fittingly chaotic. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I mean, I think because of like we've done like jam sessions or stuff where we like switch instruments and stuff between songs, and we've just found that kind of is time consuming and not very helpful. But like Kian said, like if we wanted to, we could probably do almost a full rotation switching all instruments. I don't play drums, clearly, so that wouldn't work, but like for the most part we all kind of play everything, which I think is helpful when we're trying to write stuff together.
I've seen bands do that. Y'all should try that when shows come back. Just do like a round robin.
Oh, musical chairs.
Yeah.
Fun.
Like it's even if like you're only playing to like a bunch of like drunk college kids, like that surprises them. That they're very much like, whoa, you're all playing different instruments, and goes over great as someone who's been there.
Didn't do that at one practice. Remember that one time? Well, kind of. We had like, we didn't have someone on the drum set. We had that weird little drum thing that Faye has where you squeeze the side and it changes the pitch. And one of us was just like hitting that. I think then someone was playing bass, someone was playing guitar, and someone was shouting lyrics that they were making up on the spot. I think it was late. Like we all were really sleep deprived and just like giggling, and it sounded terrible, but really loud. And like, so that's kind of fun. We like to just kind of let practices go to places like that after we get all the business stuff done, and just, whatever happens.
Yeah. With the songs that are on We're Dying, were those all pretty much, at least in like were the skeletons and like the bones of these songs done pretty early, just in like that in late summer 2019, fall, around that time, and then it just took reasonably a while to lock everything in, record, and go through the entire process of making an album? Or were these songs that came kind of just throughout that entire time period leading up to whenever recording was it a little bit more gradual, or how is that timeline looking like for the songs that are on We're Dying?
I think we did. I think for the album we did all of the songs that we had ready pre-COVID. I guess like we've played all these songs at shows before. So
yeah,
like yeah.
Yeah, they were all shows all songs that we had played at shows before. I think things changed along the way. Like we changed some specifics, but all of them were songs that were already there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I think I'm playing a different instrument on one of the songs than I was when I was doing the shows. Like,
you changed to your 12 string.
That's what I say. Like, I went to a 12 string. I'm not like playing a bassoon or something.
Yes, that would be awesome. And I will say, along with this is kind of veering off to the side, but I think one of my absolute favorite things that changed for one of the songs, and this was day of recording, for the song Shoulders Are Sexy, in parentheses, I'm sorry, I don't know how we're going to say the name, that's what I'm going to call it. There was this one part, like the second like kind of verse part, at shows, I would always just make something up. I would just kind of talk, sometimes just like about my day or like literally whatever. And so that was what I did the day we recorded it. I just kind of made something up that I felt like went along with the song. And it's kind of this part where I'm pretending that I'm in class and this guy is being like weird and sexist. And I recorded that. And then Kian was in the room and he goes, I need to say what you're saying and pretend to be the guy. And it's in the background of the song. You can go listen to it. It is my favorite thing in any of our songs. It is so funny, and it makes me laugh every single time.
It's so funny. Like, oh my god.
Was it my idea? I think it was.
It totally was. No. It was your idea. You were like, wait, I have this, and it was really funny.
Right.
We love to role play misogyny. For the sake of the sake of art.
Next music video. Ian is very respectful. Don't get it twisted. We wouldn't do
we
this.
We can't cancel RiGBY, unfortunately.
Just kidding.
This interview's over. I'm leaving. So with recording and everything, what was that experience like? Where did you record? who did you work with? Were there any last minute changes that you made that either worked in the moment or even maybe just worked better than the way that were rehearsed? Just, I know recording is a draining and just a strenuous experience, but talk just a little bit about that. When just all the details that you think would kind of fill in the gaps, would color in the details for listening to We're Dying, and just like, oh, here's how this was made.
So we were lucky enough to work with someone we already knew. So one of my coworkers does music production, and he's really good. He used to like teach me music, and he used to teach. I think he taught most of us music.
Mm-hmm.
Did Benny teach? Faye, did Benny teach you?
Yeah.
Oh well, yeah.
All of
So
us,
he
yay.
he taught most of us music. He also does music production, and he's just like he really just knocked it out of the park. Like he knew
Absolutely. everything
that we wanted. He knew all of us musically, and he just like killed it. We recorded at our workspace, and he just like he brought his whole MacBook over there, and he just set up like the drums and like like he moved everything. He was like spectacular, and he was super patient and awesome. And his name is Benny Cole. He's awesome. Like he totally was just he knocked it out of the park. I don't know. Does
Yeah.
anybody else have any?
I mean, go ahead, Hannah.
Okay. I feel like he heard things in us that we couldn't hear ourselves when we performed it, and he like totally highlighted it, and like he made them sound like a million times more clear, and like you can actually hear what we're saying in the vocals, and like he really did a good job
guitar.
like emphasizing the things that I didn't hear in myself, and like he did a spectacular job.
Yeah, I mean, just like Hannah said, things that I never could have heard in us. Just absolutely amazing, and totally was focused on matching our vision and checking in like what we wanted to sound like. Totally like would send us the rough mixes and let us have notes and like all this stuff, like super focused, super paying attention, and having us be a part of the whole process, which was just absolutely wonderful. I could not thank him enough.
Yeah, were there any parts that maybe even whether you as like any of you had this idea last minute or whether it was Benny, what were there any other moments that I guess maybe changed significantly in the studio and just really kind of captured that exact day and moment when you were recording, even if it wasn't what had been rehearsed? Or was it mostly pretty much just, this works, we're proud of this, we want to convey this the best way we can and kind of stick to our guns?
I'd say every song we kind of, or not every song, but about like half of them, we wanted vocal harmonies, but we didn't have them solidified. And literally the day we went in, we hashed out all the harmonies, and like it was like really chaotic, but we got them solid, and I think they really just added that extra little spice that they needed.
Absolutely. I think that was one thing Hannah and I especially had always really loved about Bruised Violet, that they had like this dope punk, but then they also broke out into these really cool harmonies. But the hard part was we were practicing in a space where we had one vocal mic. So, the other person was shouting their harmonies over the bass and the guitar. And even at shows, like you never know what the sound is really going to be like. I don't think we could ever really hear the harmonies. So like to actually be able to hear those was crazy. I think which song was FFF, those Hannah and I switch off, and it ends just on our 2-part harmony at the end, which was like, I had never heard that before. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now when we perform it, we totally have to do it that way. Like, it sounds great. Yeah.
I also with FFF, the guitar part for me, that sounded like very different when we did it before. Cause like, I don't like somehow like, I think I was doing like the dynamics just on my own, like playing softer in the verse and louder in the chorus.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the actual studio, I was able to like get like a bunch of wave of feedback, and I just feel like the dynamics in that were made so much better just from being able to like be in the studio and like change.
Yeah, Benny's control of the feedback for sure helped us a lot, because you've done a great, I don't even know how you do that, honestly. Like, Faye is like is turning down the guitar like mid-show, turning it back up, like putting it in front of the amp. And like, you control that super well, but for sure having the studio is helpful to have someone that can like tone it down a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it was like just super interesting hearing ourselves from a different perspective, because like we're always just in the moment playing, and we don't really have like from a playing perspective, not like a listening perspective. So going back and like hearing us like play these songs was just like a very interesting, different experience, and I think it's really great, because like I remember in FFF Faye doing that like guitar part and just being like, holy shit, like that was, it was like that feeling of like, holy crap, that was amazing.
Yeah.
That I just like never got before.
And I know Kian doesn't like when I say this because it's super cheesy, but all the time, like just at practices, I'll sit down and just like in awe of being able to play with these musicians who I like am so impressed by all the time, by like when we're writing stuff or just like adding new things to our songs. It is just crazy impressive to me. And I think another thing is, as a band, we're pretty, I don't know, I mean, I think we joke around and we don't take ourselves like too seriously, but I think with that, sometimes the kind of negative side is that we're a little bit hard on ourselves. And it's very, I think for a long time it was really hard to recognize ourselves as like, we are an actual band. Like we would play shows and be like, this doesn't even feel real, like we're not really a band, right? But having Benny like kind of put this together in a way that was so professional and like, I mean, you know, obviously ended up matching what we were doing, but like to have someone be like, yeah, this sounds good, and this is good music, this is professional, and we'd listen to it afterwards and we could actually be like, oh yeah, no, we sound like a band. Like this is something to be proud of, I think is a really big step for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I still feel like having music on Spotify feels weird. Like I'm just used to having shitty demos on Bandcamp.
Yeah, no, I do. It does not feel real.
Like hitting the download button on your own music for the first time is like,
exactly,
your brain turns to soup. It's so weird. Again, you kind of touched on this a second ago, but with given that the band's existence pretty much prior to this was almost entirely live, and was the only way for people to hear you and how you perceived yourselves primarily, were you going into these recording sessions trying to capture that live energy and just translate it in the best way through a studio recording, or was it more like we want to take advantage of the fact that we have studio, we have more than one mic, or was this kind of maybe somewhere in between where you're trying to kind of bridge the gap between those two slightly different approaches?
Yeah, we originally wanted to do, like, we were debating at the beginning whether we wanted to do it live or we wanted to do like multi-track. And then like we talked over it with Benny a few times, and he was like, multi-track would just sound better. So that's what we went with. But even still, like, I think all of us just go from a perspective of like just trying to go for that the farthest we can. Like I always think about like the Descendants, like go for all. Like whenever I play, I'm just like, okay, I need to put my entire self into this. And I think all of us just look at that from that perspective. I don't know. What are you guys' opinions?
Yeah, I mean, from that note, and I'll go back to the recording section, but Kian often ends, especially live shows, with bleeding fingers and splinters, and at least one or two of us is on the ground after a song. I mean, also for the effect of it. But I think one thing is that, like, for us, I think the biggest reason, like that first show at the garage, the thing that really struck people, and the reason why we work so well, and I think kind of our biggest, like the thing that helps us the most, is kind of like our stage presence and our energy. And that's, I think, what kind of caught people off guard. Like, yeah, we covered Babes in Toyland. I don't remember how good it actually was. It might have been kind of okay, but we were like clearly all having fun playing together and like thrashing around this, like it was around the stage and stuff, and just like really having fun with it. And so I think a big part of the goal, and something that Benny did a really great job with, even though we were doing the multi-track, was like kind of capturing that live energy, like you said, and still trying to give that feel of like, yeah, you're at a small show and people are dancing around, and it's dark and sweaty, but it's fun, and like whatever. I think that's so we tried to kind of find a good balance when we were recording there. Good quality, but still, kind of live.
Yeah. This is pointedly a question for everybody. What are your personal favorite moments on the entire album? And we've had some highlights so far. It doesn't have to be like you as an individual, just listening back to it now that it's out, or even listen to like rough mixes and such. What were the parts of the songs that you would hear that and your jaw is always just kind of left on the floor? It's like, wow, we pulled that off. We did that. Or this member of the band really killed this part. What are some of those highlights for each of you?
I have one right away that is like not, because we've talked about the musicianship, like the whole album leaves me in awe of how amazing my bandmates are, and just like being like, I kind of cringe at hearing the sound of my own voice, but like being able to hear these guys playing and just being amazing totally makes up for it. But like despite that, any of the like actual musicianship, I think the part that strikes me the most is at the end of Anymore, Benny kept in, Anymore, to clarify, was the first song we recorded, and Kian's drum part was the first part that we recorded. And there's a part right at the end where Kian goes, "Oh, that was awesome." And that was like the first take. And it just, every time, like I can totally, knowing Kian, it is so genuine, and I can totally, like hearing that sort of excitement out of Kian just makes me so happy, because I think it totally like shows what we were talking about earlier, like feeling like, oh, this is real. And for me, I think that tiny clip totally demonstrates, like, that was when we kind of realized, okay, this is actually happening. So that's for sure my favorite part of the whole album.
I think my favorite part is it's something that I forgot that we did until I listened to the album again. But cool, we added like claps, and I don't know. I just like, that's probably one of the favorite solos that I've done. Claps just elevate it so much. It surprised me. I was like, oh wow, this is so cool.
And like recording those, I remember we all stood around a mic that was kind of low in a circle, and we were all just standing there. It took us a really long time. We kept messing up the timing, but us, including Benny, all 5 of us standing in a circle around this mic, just doing these little claps. And it was in this dead silent room, and we had headphones on, so it was pretty funny to like look at. I think I have a video on my phone where you can't hear the song, you can just see us clapping.
Like a little cult,
so I think that for sure. Yeah, I had totally forgotten about it too, but Faye, I love that part.
Hannah, you want to go? Or
I think just the incorporation of the 12 string just like made it just like really, I don't know, it just added so much like depth into everything. And I think, Faye, that was for FFF, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. FFF, I think, is probably just my favorite song. Like,
yeah, I think I think FFF like by far is the most improved song. Like when we when we like, it's probably like my favorite song now. But when we went into the studio, I was like, I think we might need to cut this. It's not completely ready.
For sure. And like we were worried about kind of the quiet, slow part, that maybe it wasn't going to work super well or translate the way we wanted to. But yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like most improved for sure goes to FFF. Like, yeah, we were not sure about that. And I wanted to say too, Faye, didn't you build that 12 string yourself or partially?
Yeah. Well, I bought a kit and then ended up buying like the pickups and like basically half the parts separately, so I probably should have just not bought the kit, but
yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah, that was definitely like mine too. Just again, like I said this before, but hearing that like back coming into that guitar part in FFF again is just like holy, like it gives you chills. It's just insane. Like hearing just Faye play that in the studio and just sitting there, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, wow. like it was this like amazing feeling, and I'm thinking about it and I'm getting chills, but it was just like awesome. Like I can't describe it enough.
Definitely.
That's sick. Yeah. So obviously Daisy was the lead single, only single, and also had the one music video so far. It sounds like I don't know if that was a joke or not, but it sounds like there's another one coming maybe sometime soon. But with the music video for Daisy, it's pretty literal portrayal of the lyrics. Just you don't see that as often, I feel like, at least not as Like, it wasn't tongue in cheek. It wasn't very sarcastic. It's just pretty straightforward depiction of murder. So talk a little bit, share a little bit about just where the idea to do that so literally. How did you know the collaborators, like the people that like shot and edited everything? Just tell a little bit about making that video.
I feel like most of that was me. I think well with shooting it was me and my cousin. We brought him along.
Yeah, number one fan.
Harper.
Harper
Yeah.
is totally our number one fan. Sorry, just like quick side. Thank you so much, Harper. I don't know if we've actually thanked him. But after our last show, right before quarantine, the one at Moon Palace, he came with us on our like little celebratory trip to Denny's. And I think after that, he just started being our go-to. Like, we need something done, Harper will do it because
Harper's
like
pretty much a part of RiGBY.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we play Dungeons and Dragons together. He taught us how to play. Like, yeah, Harper's the best.
He's like the de facto like roadie or like the.
Oh, yeah.
He's the hidden side character. Like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, me and Harper we shot most of the stuff, and then I spent like iPhone. And then I spent like probably like 48 hours like editing that in my room. There was we shot way too much footage. Most of it along in the edit. I think we went over the song 13 times. 13 different going through this. So
yeah, and to clarify, that's for the parts where we're not playing, the parts where we were. Because even more time for the playing parts. But the story of recording that, you asked kind of where that came from. I mean, the thing is, the Daisy lyrics, so the verses, the part, you know, that you said quite literally talking about murder, I wrote not for RiGBY. I had written them like some other time, kind of like what I was talking about before. Just like kind of nonsense, literally about nothing. And then I played it actually for Faye's mom, who is our other number one fan. Shout out Mary, love her. And she like loved it. So I decided I needed to my mom played it for Faye's mom and she really liked it. So then we decided to incorporate that. And then the other lyrics that are with it, like chorus part, actually were not the same song at all. I just took those from somewhere else. And so I think we just decided, we thought about what to do for the music video for a long time, and I think what we ended up doing just seemed like the most fun. But you know, we tried to find somewhere where people weren't going to be, since we were like bringing fake blood and dragging Hannah around.
Oh my god!
And turns out people actually do walk by Minnehaha Falls in the winter. So when we were there with the kitchen knife and fake blood, you know, there were a few, you know, kids with sleds and their parents walking by at a few points, which probably didn't look great. I mean, we were all smiling, but
not actually dead, just pointing.
We were happy murderers.
Not a corpse, still alive.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hannah was a trooper for laying in the snow for so long without gloves. Just it was cold the day we recorded that. It was pretty cold, and Hannah just fully just laid on the ground.
Yeah, so I had like the coldest day of the winter when like we shouldn't have even been outside.
It was like
it was so cold.
Yeah,
and that actually came from the reason we got that outfit is because Hannah and I, the Halloween before that, decided we were gonna. I mean, we didn't end up doing anything. Actually, both of us on Halloween ended up being in quarantine for COVID. But we had both planned a Halloween costume together where Hannah was going to be like a corpse bride and I was her wife who had killed her. I don't know. It was kind of a really good Halloween costume. But Hannah already had the wedding dress with the blood on it. So we were like, let's go from there. We already have this. We never really got to use it. So
yeah, and just like the entire like story of the video was literally made up on a whim. Like
and kind of on that day. Like we kind of just made up the shots as we went.
Yeah. Most of the story came in through the edit. Like
yeah.
Since the lyrics were nonsense, we didn't really have much story to base it on. We kind of took from the Daisy part, but like there wasn't much of a backstory behind exactly what you hear in the lyrics. So
That's the joy of video storytelling. You can be like, hey, we're gonna tell about the wife murder more than the song
Yeah.
actually can.
Exactly. And like
Um,
you said about second music video, that's something we had talked about like once in practice, but maybe now that's something we'll start working on. I don't know. People have to
Yeah.
stay tuned.
in the brief time that RiGBY was like fully active, actually fully a band and playing shows, um, since just kind of scrolling through like old Facebook event pages and mourning the loss of shows and everything, uh, a lot of the shows RiGBY played weren't necessarily in like the house show scene, which is I know where a lot of the bands that at least I talked to kind of came out of, and were just a lot of the local scenes kind of was happening there, and is a band that kind of did engage with that a little bit, but also was kind of doing your own thing and partnering with the Garage a lot, which is just a little bit out of the cities. What were your impressions of, I guess, any quote unquote scene that you might have felt like you were participating in or were perceiving, and especially like of your very unique place as a band who has kind of done their own thing and hasn't really pigeonholed them or allowed themselves to be pigeonholed as like we're a basement punk band like that. I don't feel like that's happened with RiGBY, whereas
Yeah.
it has happened with a lot of other bands. Not that that's a bad thing though.
I don't think we've worked really part of a scene. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't think we've
No.
ever felt like that.
Like I mean,
we've
more in that
always
like you're
just
playing
wanted-
like playing shows with other bands and like maybe playing with the same bands more than once and kind of interacting with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we just set out to like make and write punk music. We weren't like we go to shows where we're just active in music in the Twin Cities. I think like when we just made the band, we were just like, okay, let's make some punk rock music, and we weren't really influenced by anything else except for like our contemporaries, which were like Bruce Violet, Kitten Forever, Babes in Toyland,
Yeah.
which were like really what inspired us. And I think we all just kind of want to pull back to that. Like at least I really do. Like I would love to just like reopen like a big punk scene, because I know there's a big indie scene in the Twin Cities and there's a big hardcore, not a huge hardcore scene, but there's a hardcore scene.
Mhm.
The hardcore scene, yes, definitely. But like I think we all just fell in love like with the traditional like punk rock kind of thing, and if there was a scene that would kind of be our scene, we all just are punks in the end.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Sorry, Hannah. Go ahead.
I'd say, especially towards like I guess the beginning, we never said no to a show, and I think that kind of says a lot about us. But I mean, we ended up playing with a lot of indie bands because I mean we didn't have music available. No one really knew who we were. I mean, no one probably does still. Anyway, but we kind of did get stuck with like a lot of indie shows, and everyone was kind of like, "Who's this? Like, what?"
Why are they so loud?
Yeah. So
I feel like RiGBY is definitely, that's not like when you think of RiGBY, I definitely not think of a punk. I feel like that might no, like we were originally getting shows without any music released.
So I think once shows are a thing again, maybe we can try and get our foot into some more punk shows, but that's probably a ways away. But
Yeah,
I'd say that was part of our thing, was we always said yes to any show, and it just kind of turned out the way it did.
One of my favorite kind of memories is I'm someone that really enjoys, we all would like go to shows just kind of on our own, pre-COVID and during RiGBY, before RiGBY. But one thing is I really, really like talking to new people and talking to strangers. So especially if we all went to a show together, we would kind of do this thing where if we wanted to talk to a band, I would kind of walk up to them and be like,
God.
hey, and I'd start talking to them, and then the rest of RiGBY would come over, and then we would all start talking to them. Because, you know, I think we have a mix of kind of introverted and extroverted energy, and I think I'm
Mix.
sometimes very, like,
Mix.
in your face, and just I'm very extroverted. I like to talk to people. The rest of the band maybe is a little bit more introverted. it. But we would all talk to these people and end up just like making connections at shows or wherever we could. And I will say, I think there was a bit of time where we were kind of trying to get a few of those house shows, basement shows, because we had friends in bands that played them. But I think some of that was just like hard. Like bands had been playing with the same other bands and on the same bills, and a lot of them being like indie or quieter bands for a while. So they kind of had these bills set up, and for new bands, it is sometimes a little bit harder to break into, especially if you don't exactly match the genre that other people are playing. So I think we were actually kind of right on the verge to start playing a few of those shows. We had some lined up. But yeah, I think like Hannah said, like having music out so people can, you can find the right bands to play with is super helpful. Because there were some bands that we really liked and were great friends with and wanted to play shows with, but we just realized like we don't draw the same audience and this probably wouldn't really be a great fit. So we had to kind of, figure out what to do.
I'm personally in favor of like more chaotic bills where like every band is a different genre, but I know most people aren't looking forward to that on like a Saturday night. They're like, I want to hear all these random things all the same time. It's like, you want to stick with one thing sometimes. So I think that's fair. And hopefully, that'll begin to happen a bit as shows start to come back. Hopefully not too soon, but it's going to be too soon no matter what. So
absolutely.
That's great. Love it. So I know you guys have just put out your album. Hopefully you're able to like, as much as one can without letting it go to your head, like rest on your laurels a little bit, just be proud of yourselves and breathe. But what does the future hold for RiGBY? What are you hoping to do? What are you even actively working on as you're able to practice and continue to work on stuff with like vaccines and just the availability to do that increasing? What are you hoping to do and what are you working on? And I guess what should people stay tuned for maybe in the distant future, maybe sooner rather than later? Whatever you've got in the works.
That music video.
Other than the music video, that is definitely real. Yeah.
I would say first thing that's super exciting is Kian. Second vaccine is super soon, and that'll mean that our full band will be fully vaccinated, which is
today.
It's today.
Yeah.
Super soon.
Yeah.
We're so pumped.
I'm glad we got this done before you got the shot, so you didn't have to bail.
Yeah.
So fully, like, really excited to like be able to be around each other without masks, because it's kind of weird that like these are some of the people that I absolutely see the most, but we just like I kind of haven't really truly seen them for a while. So I think that's exciting. Otherwise, I mean, we've started writing new songs, so just writing and hopefully when things are actually safe, playing shows again. But I feel like for us, generally we're feeling like there's still a good ways to go, even if venues are opening. I think some of that is
especially like
be a little
smaller
bit too
shows,
soon.
basement shows where people are just sweating on each other and it's gross.
Yeah. I don't know, does anyone else have anything specific in mind that we're planning on?
I think just keeping the cogs going. We just started doing t-shirts. So we're getting those orders in, and we're gonna start printing more of those.
We're gonna figure out how to not lose money on the shipping costs.
Exactly. Oh my god.
Delivering them by hand can also, like, just driving around if they're local orders can help.
We kind of got hit by a truck, hit by the shipping prices when we had to ship one out of state, and the shipping was $20, and we were like,
we had to ship one to the UK, so I feel that.
Oh god, yeah. So we're trying to figure that out a little bit, but for sure the shirt stuff is exciting. We've been printing them for a while, and that's super fun. We got to learn how to do that. Shout out to Mike, taught us how to print t-shirts, had us come in. He used to be my cross country coach actually, and he would, at cross country races, if you got like a personal record, you put your hand like in a box and you would pull out a t-shirt, and it was one of the like misprints he had made, because his shop prints shirts for like the Twin Cities Marathon and all these races and stuff. So I reached out and he let us come into his like print shop and just like helped us print the screen and showed us how to do it, and then ended up super generously letting us keep the screen, so then we could build our own like screen printing setup at our practice space, and now we get to print them all ourselves, which is awesome.
Sick, yeah.
And Kian totally made that happen, built the the press setup and whatever.
Yeah,
You got it eventually.
well, it broke, but
You know.
I made it out of plywood. It took me like I started making it like right before COVID, and then I kind of took a break for a while. And then I finished building it. Like it was all just plywood by hand. I didn't have like any tools. I bought a handsaw. I was just hacking on the handsaw for like hours on end. And I still need to work on it a little bit because it is still broken, so I need to fix it. But yeah.
But the shirts
I will say,
look good.
our shirts are like cute, but not a single one is the same. They all have their own little.
Which
unique
just makes it even better. Shirt is unique. Sometimes it's not completely centered.
It's an NFT. They're all different.
Gosh.
Exactly.
Oh. If it was actually an NFT, this interview would never come out. Just don't. Like, why don't we just set the rainforest on fire while we're at it? Like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Any plans for like physical releases for We're Dying? Maybe even like, is that something that's even been discussed? Because if not, I'm giving you a free idea because I think that'd be cool.
Hannah, you asked about doing CDs. I think we have some older audience that has asked for CDs, so that might be something that we'll start doing.
Yeah, I at a young age learned how to like burn discs and make them all cute with like pictures. But yeah, I was like, I got a few texts and people were like, "Oh, where can I buy this?" And I was like, it's on Spotify." And they were like, "Do you have any CDs?" And I'm like, "A CD? What? Who uses CDs?"
A lot of people, actually.
Apparently, yeah, we found out.
We could if people are interested.
I think the plan originally, like, we were like, oh, we'll wait until we're back in person, and CDs could be something we could like do at shows and sometimes even give away. But now it seems like people are asking for them, and so it's nice to know that people want to pay artists and that are like they're willing to do that. Right now, we've just gotten like a few random like notifications on Bandcamp because I think you can like choose how much you pay for an album.
Yeah.
So we've had people just like send us $25 for the album, and we're like, oh, great.
We actually get to see some of this. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's really nice, but I think that is probably a smart route to go down. I've had people ask us about vinyl, but everyone I've talked to about that is like, it is not worth it. You are not going to be able to make high quality vinyl and make money on it. So
I mean, yeah, but also like, come on, it's vinyl.
It'd be cool.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to do like a few.
It's more that it would take
But I
like
don't know
8
if that's,
months
like-
or something.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if it makes sense in the long term, but
Yeah, I feel like it's not going to be profitable unless we like buy our own vinyl machine, which even then is definitely not going to be profitable either.
Well,
So
I mean,
costs a lot.
if this is even maybe not for this album, like my band has done some research into that, and like it's difficult unless you already have like kind of a following or like a label. But there are a lot of places where like you only have to sell like less, like around 40 or 50% of like the pressing of the run before you start making profit, which is it's still 50%.
yeah, I think
The math
you're
isn't as
catching
bad.
us on what we have said again. Like, we always forget that we're actually a band and that we can like do things. Like, we just opened a bank account and stopped keeping all of our money in a little box that we had to break open because I lost the key. We did have to hit it with a hammer. So we're just like realizing that we can actually do things.
Yeah.
So that it might be good to start looking into stuff like that.
That wraps up all of my official questions, I guess. But I always want to ask people about like what they've been listening to lately. Like what specifically, if there are any like local bands or DIY bands from like the state or the Midwest that you've recently come across or just kind of you think are underappreciated. Now would be the time to share those. Just kind of shout out maybe friends bands, anything like that. If you need to take a second to pull out your Spotify, now is the time to do so.
Well, Meek from Alien Book Club just released an album. Lily
That they
Takes a
did.
Nap, and I've been listening to that a lot. I really like that.
Yeah. This is not local. I'll think of some local ones. But recently I started listening to this band, Hands Off Gretel. I think they're from the UK. Good, like, strong, femme-led punk band. And I think kind of like post Babes in Toyland feel. So I've been really liking that. But I'm going to think of some local ones.
I've been really getting back into like Mannequin Pussy. I think they're from Detroit?
I can't. That sounds right, but I can't remember
something
either.
like that. No, or Cincinnati. It doesn't matter. Not here. And then local, let's see. I've been listening to Vile, Nice, Partition, Gully Boys. My brain's
I've
not
been
working. That's just kind of overall.
Oh yeah. Another local band that I've listened to a lot is Uranium Club. I kind of forgot about them because I didn't discover they were local. I discovered them like I discovered most bands, but I was like, oh wait, they're from Minneapolis. That's sweet.
They broke up though,
Kind of like
which is super depressing.
Oh, they broke up?
I'm pretty sure they broke up sometime last year after like putting out a record in like 2019.
Oh,
Because they're super
that's
underrated.
similar. Because I was gonna say, yeah, a local band I had been listening to. I really liked Mr. West, and I recently heard that maybe they stopped making music.
Yeah.
Is that true? We were debating that.
I think, Maud, when we were in like a CMC meeting, someone was reaching out to Caleb, who's the guitarist vocalist. I have not seen anything official, but that would suck because they were cool. They were talking about doing like an album like right before the pandemic and everything. So maybe they'll go out with a bang. Who knows?
I would say always. I don't know how this wasn't my first thought. I'm always listening to Bruised Violet. That is like one of my most listened to playlists. I made my own playlist of like all their songs because there wasn't one. And so I listened to that a lot. And Scrunchies has been doing some new stuff recently.
Yeah.
Same drummer for both of those bands. Love Danielle. She is so awesome. So I think those are my big two local ones right now.
Yeah, they're supposed to have a new album out, or like they've had one done for a while, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So manifesting that for this summer.
Yes.
Just in general, I've been listening to a lot of LCD Sound System.
Mm-hmm.
Just been getting really into them lately. And then on the local
old stuff
side,
or new stuff? Like pre hiatus. Okay.
I really dig their pre hiatus stuff, but I like some of their newer songs. Like I really like Call the Police. Call the Police is a great
That's
tune.
a great song. Yeah.
And then locally, I've been going. I don't think they have a record out, but I think they're recording. But I know some guys in a band called Mean Mugs. They're a hardcore band. We were going to play with them, I think, before COVID, and then something happened.
Before COVID, yeah.
Just really, really cool dudes. Shout out to Eddie and Joey. Awesome guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Mean Mugs, you said? Like Mean Mugs?
Yeah,
Mean Mugs.
Cool.
Another band that we were supposed to play with, we had a show right before this that I had been listening to, or I've been listening to recently, Careful Gaze, and they were playing.
Yo.
They played at the Pop Punk Sucks show. They were one of the bands that played there, and we were supposed to play with them. We had a show in March, I think, booked with them, and so I've been listening to them since they haven't been able to play.
Yeah. No, their new EP is phenomenal. It's so good.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Love those guys.
Thank you again for chatting, and congrats on the album release. Everyone check
so
it out if you
much.
haven't.
Thank you.
It was great to talk to you.
The Ear Coffee Podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @Ear Coffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.